Her entire family was coming over, cousins, aunts, her brother with his loud kids, and of course, her mom who never liked me. It was our first time hosting Thanksgiving in the new house. Maddie wanted everything perfect. I just wanted to survive it. Yeah, I got it, I called back, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I stepped through the kitchen and into the hallway. The garage was at the end. Cold air slipped in under the door. I figured I must have left it cracked open. When I pulled it slightly, I froze. Voices. Low. Close. Not arguing. Whispering. Laughing. My fingers gripped the door frame. I leaned in just enough to peek through the gap. There was movement behind the workbench. My chest tightened. Her voice was soft, almost playful. You better go before he comes looking. A man chuckled. Deep voice. Familiar. Nah, let him find us. Maybe he'll finally figure it out. Then I saw it, Maddie's hand on his chest. Her wedding ring caught the light. His hand slid around her waist. My mouth went dry. I backed away without making a sound and shut the door gently. I didn't say a word. Instead, I walked back into the kitchen, picked up the carving knife, set the last tray on the counter. My heart was beating so hard I thought my shirt would lift with every thump. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was calculating. I looked around at the place I built, the life I thought I had. And then I looked at the table full of food I made for her family. How long had this been going on? And who the hell was that man in my garage? Hey, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story. I have one small request. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to join the journey. It means a lot to me, and trust me, even better stories are coming. Now let's continue story. I didn't eat dinner that night. Couldn't. Everyone else was laughing, shoving mashed potatoes onto plates, passing drinks. I stood by the counter, carving turkey like a robot. Maddie moved through the room like she owned it, hugging her cousin, pouring wine for her mom, kissing my cheek like she hadn't just been in the garage with another man. I looked closer at her. Her blouse was tucked wrong on one side. Lipstick slightly smudged. Brandon showed up 30 minutes late. He strolled in with a box of craft beer and a casual grin like he didn't just climb out of my garage and wipe my wife off his face. Sorry I'm late, he said. Traffic. His hair was damp, freshly showered, and he wasn't wearing the shirt I gave him last week. The one Maddie said he loved. Glad you made it, I told him, offering a handshake. He took it, but I didn't let go right away. I looked him dead in the eye. He blinked. Just once. I smiled. Hope you like what we've cooked up. He laughed. Nervous. Wouldn't miss it. But I wasn't listening to his words. I was watching Maddie from across the room. She kept glancing toward Brandon like she was checking for damage. Her sister Brielle leaned close to her, whispered something. Maddie brushed it off. But Brielle didn't look convinced. I wasn't either. I slipped out after dessert. Into the garage again. This time with a plan. I checked the workbench. Moved things around until I found it. A receipt from a motel just off I-35. 2 nights. Paid in cash. Yesterday. Brandon's name was scribbled in the top corner. I stared at it for a long time. Then I pulled my old GoPro from the cabinet and fixed it behind the shelf, hidden, but facing where I saw them. Next time, they wouldn't just be a whisper behind a door. How many lies can one marriage hold before it collapses? We stood together, smiling for a photo we'd both fake-framed for years. Maddie pressed into my side. Say turkey. The phone clicked. Her mom gave a thumbs up. Everyone clapped like this was some golden moment of family unity. Inside, my stomach was churning. I knew now. It wasn't just a one-time mistake or drunken accident. It was deliberate, repeated, thought out. Worse? It was with Brandon, a man I brought into my life, trained, gave business to, even helped pay off debt when his father passed. He sat at the far end of the table now, sipping cider like it was communion wine. Bastard had the audacity to toast. To love, he said, and loyalty. I almost laughed. The room raised glasses. Maddie looked down, cheeks flushing. I raised mine too, just a little slower. Later, as people moved to the living room for football, Maddie pulled me aside. You okay? She asked. You've been quiet. I smiled. Just tired. She touched my arm. You've done so much today. Thank you, babe. This meant a lot to me. I held her gaze. Glad it made you happy. She leaned in to kiss me. I let her. It tasted like guilt. When she walked away, I turned and watched her go. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She didn't need to, because she thought I'd never find out. But now I had video. Receipts. suspicion from her own sister, and a deep, slow-burning need to set it all on fire in a way they'd never forget. And I wasn't going to scream, or punch walls, or cry in the dark. No, I was going to make them earn every second of what was coming. But the question was, should I ruin her quietly, or burn everything in front of her family? The next morning, I went back to the garage. Not for tools, not for chairs, for clarity. The camera was still there, tucked behind the dusty shelf. I pulled the memory card and slid it into my laptop in the office, locking the door behind me. I wasn't ready for what I saw. It wasn't just kissing or whispered "I miss yous." It was full-on betrayal. Intimate. Comfortable. Like they'd done this dozens of times. Maddie laughed the way she used to laugh with me, before her eyes started drifting over my shoulder during conversations. The worst part wasn't the act. It was the planning. Once he signs that renewal deal, we're good, Brandon whispered, tugging her close. He will, Maddie said. He trusts me. They were talking about my company, not just my heart. My name was on the contracts, but Maddie had been managing my calendar, client follow-ups, and legal paperwork for months. She said she was helping me scale. Said she was all in. Turns out, she was just making sure she and Brandon could gut me legally before walking out clean. I paused the video, sat there, hands shaking. Everything made sense now. The last-minute meeting she forgot to put on my schedule. The deal that fell through mysteriously. The client Brandon suddenly picked up right after. My whole world wasn't just cracking. It had been redecorated behind my back. Later that night, while Maddie watched TV, I returned to the garage. I grabbed one of those cheap folding chairs from the corner. Sat down exactly where they'd stood the day before. Closed my eyes. Then I smiled. Because I wasn't broken. I was awake now. How do you destroy two people who already think they've won? The next few days were all smiles. Perfect husband mode. I brought Maddie coffee in bed. Took her car to get washed. Asked her about her day. Acted interested when she told me her sister Brielle might be getting back with her ex. All while transferring funds into a personal offshore account Maddie didn't know existed. My lawyer, Andrew, got the prenup reevaluated. Turns out Maddie never officially filed her half of the asset transfer last year. Which meant, legally, she had nothing. Not yet. Meanwhile, I started digging deeper into Brandon. His emails, client logs, call records. I found a number that popped up too often. Blocked caller. 9:45 p.m. every Thursday. I paid a data trace service to look it up. 3 days later, I got a report back. The number was tied to a storage unit, leased by Brandon. And on the contract, a second authorized user, Madison Hale. She used her maiden name. I called Sierra, an old friend from college, now a licensed private investigator in Dallas. She owed me one. I gave her the address. Told her to get everything. That night, Maddie came into the bedroom late. Hair wet. Smelled like lavender shampoo. I was pretending to read. She kissed my forehead. You okay? You've been off. I'm good, I said, turning a page. Just thinking. She slid under the blanket, laid her head on my chest. You still love me, right? I looked at the ceiling. Then her. Of course I do. She smiled. Kiss me again. Good. Tell me you love me before you go to sleep. I did. And I meant it. Just not in the way she thought. How do you sleep beside someone planning to bury you and still sound calm when you say, I love you? The first time Maddie ever told me she loved me was during a business pitch. She wore a blazer, no bra, and handed me a folder labeled, Our Future. I should have known then. She talked about equity splits and joint branding and using love as leverage. I thought it was quirky, ambitious. Now I know it was a script. I remembered that meeting the day Sierra called. Logan, she said, you need to see this in person. I drove 2 hours straight, didn't stop for gas or food. Sierra met me outside the storage facility. She looked serious. No jokes, no small talk. Inside was a small couch, some old equipment, and one big filing cabinet full of records. Contracts, printed emails, even handwritten notes Maddie had written to Brandon about what to say during meetings. How to distract me. How to get client information out of me without raising suspicion. She was building her own version of your company, Sierra said quietly. And she planned to launch it next year. Without you. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Maddie had been using my money, my business knowledge, and my trust to design her own empire. And Brandon? He was just the front, the mouthpiece. But the mind behind it? That was Maddie. She wasn't cheating because she was bored. She was cheating because she was strategic. I left the facility without saying much. Just drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the edge of the seat. This wasn't personal anymore. It was a hostile takeover disguised as a marriage. How do you destroy someone who made your heart part of her business plan? You ever stare at your own house and feel like a stranger? I stood in the kitchen that morning, coffee in hand, just looking at the place I built. Hardwood floors I installed myself. Countertops Maddie said were too cold, until she saw her friends compliment them. Every damn detail had a memory tied to it. Now it all felt like props on a set. A fake stage for a fake marriage. I walked past the hallway mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were darker, my face tighter. Something in me had shifted, like I stopped being a husband and started becoming something else. Maddie was still sleeping upstairs. Peaceful, like her world was safe. She had no idea what was coming. Before I left for the office, I texted Brandon. Need to talk. Alone. No, Maddie. Tonight. He replied fast. Everything okay? I smiled. Just business. And it was the last business conversation we'd ever have. I walked into the garage again on my way out. Just stared at it. The folding chairs were still stacked in the corner like nothing happened. But this time, I wasn't angry. I was done being angry. I was building my counterstrike, one cold, calculated move at a time. Because if they were going to tear down the life I built, they'd better be ready for what's underneath the surface. You don't steal from a man who's already lost everything. That man has nothing left to lose. We met at the downtown bar we always used for off-the-books business talk. Brandon wore his usual smug look, dressed casual, like he didn't just crawl out of my garage 2 days ago. Everything good? He asked, sipping whiskey like we were still friends. I nodded. Just wanted to run something by you. Expansion strategy. He leaned in. Let's hear it. I slid a folder across the table. Inside, numbers, projections, and a fake investor profile named Chris Wilmore. Brandon opened it and nodded like he knew what he was looking at. He's got capital, right? I nodded. And he's interested in splitting operations, us running a new location under a different name. He wants you in charge. Brandon sat back, smirked, greedy little flicker in his eye. Finally giving me my own shop, huh? Something like that. He had no clue the documents he just signed gave me full control of his client list. That the investor didn't exist. That the email chain was fake, the deal was fake, and the paper trail would bury him once I turned the final page. He smiled and raised his glass. To new beginnings. I tapped mine against his. To karma. He laughed, thinking it was just a joke. I got in my car that night and sat in silence before driving. I looked in the rearview mirror, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Sharp, focused, dangerous. Brandon thought he was walking toward a payday. He was walking toward a trap. Sunday brunch was at Maddie's mom's place. Everyone was there, Brielle, Maddie, cousins, uncles. Football in the background, laughter in the air, but I wasn't there for fun. I was there for cracks. And I found one. Brielle pulled me aside in the kitchen while Maddie was in the living room chatting with her mom. She's acting weird, she whispered. Like, off. I played dumb. You mean Maddie? Brielle nodded. I don't know. She's sneaky. Like when she used to lie to our parents back in high school. I raised a brow. She lie a lot? Brielle snorted. Please. She's been doing this forever. You know she and Brandon were hooking up before you two even got married, right? I blinked. What? Her face froze. Wait, she didn't tell you? I smiled slow. No, she didn't. Brielle's face went pale. Forget I said anything. Please. Too late. That was all I needed. It wasn't an affair. It was a continuation. This wasn't something that happened during our marriage. It started before. Which meant the wedding, the vows, the photos, all of it, was a lie. That night, I pulled up the wedding video on my phone and watched it in the dark. Her smile. Her promises. The tears in her voice as she said, I do. I should have known. The devil doesn't come with horns. She comes with dimples and a white dress. But hey, if you're still watching right now, drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? Which city's giving you chills right now? Let's see where this betrayal is hitting hardest. Type it in below. I want to see how far this story's reaching. I spent the whole night studying our prenup. Not because I didn't trust the lawyer, but because I needed to know every angle, every word. Buried on page 13, under the property and inheritance clauses, was a line Maddie had added back in year 2 of our marriage. It was meant to protect me back then, just in case we ever get sued. She was trying to show loyalty. Or so I thought. The clause read, "In the event of deception or business misrepresentation by either party, the offended party retains full ownership of shared assets acquired during the affected period." That one sentence was about to become the sword I'd used to cut everything apart. Because Maddie didn't just cheat on me. She stole leads, redirected clients, coached Brandon on how to maneuver contracts behind my back. That was fraud. And I had proof. I drove straight to Andrew's office, my lawyer. Dropped the binder on his desk. "I want to go nuclear," I said. He flipped through the pages, his brow rising higher and higher. "You really want to go this route?" I looked him dead in the eye. "If I'm doing this, I'm doing it all the way." He leaned back, nodded. "Then this clause just became your golden ticket." My marriage wasn't over. It was about to be evicted. After that meeting, I stopped talking about revenge and started living it. I changed all my banking passwords, pulled her name off my health insurance, rerouted all business communication to a private server Brandon couldn't access. Then I started buying things under a different LLC. Small purchases at first, software, consulting fees, new client contracts. All legit. All mine. But Maddie still thought we were rebuilding. She made pancakes one morning and left a note. "Thank you for being patient with me. I know I haven't been easy lately. I love you." She was either trying to fool me, or she was buying time to finish the con. Either way, I smiled when I saw it. Let her feel safe. Let her think she still had her claws in me. Brandon, meanwhile, texted me updates like we were still partners. I replied casually. "Sounds good. Looks promising. Let's circle back." Every reply was building the paper trail I needed to prove his involvement in her scheme. Sierra called me later that day. "I found something else," she said. "Old bank statements under a dummy account. Maddie's name's not on them, but her handwriting is all over the ledger." "How much?" "Close to $94,000. Over a year. Stolen. Funneled. Hidden." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling for a long time. They didn't just stab me in the back. They emptied my pockets while doing it. But I wasn't going to scream. I was going to finish setting the stage. And when it was ready, they were going to walk into a room they thought they controlled and find out it was built just for their downfall. The conference room was quiet, slick with tension and fake politeness. Brandon sat across from me, looking sharp, expensive watch, cologne too strong, and that same smug grin he always wore when he thought he was ahead. "I've been talking with Wilmore," he said. "He wants us to launch next quarter." I nodded. "Good." He leaned back. "We'll need to rework the contracts. He wants sole licensing rights." I looked down at the folder in front of me. "Already done." Brandon smirked. "Damn, you move fast." He had no idea that the man he thought was Wilmore was actually Sierra's friend, an ex-investigator who specialized in legal sting operations. Every email Brandon had sent, every file he transferred, every shady agreement, captured, logged, timestamped, and now sitting in a packet that Andrew had already sent to the district attorney. But the real cherry on top? A letter Brandon opened an hour later, slipped into his mail pile. "You have been named in a formal complaint regarding financial fraud, breach of contract, and intellectual property theft. You are advised to cease all operations tied to Harlan and Company until further notice." He probably read it at home, maybe even with Maddie beside him. Maybe they thought it was a scare tactic, but it wasn't. It was the beginning of the end. And the part they still didn't know? This wasn't even about revenge anymore. This was justice. 2 weeks after Brandon got served, I sent out the invitations. Handwritten, personal, traditional. Thanksgiving dinner, one last time. At our home. The same place the lies began. I sent them to everyone in Maddie's family, even those I hadn't seen in years. I made it sound emotional. "We're rebuilding. We want to reconnect." Maddie was thrilled. Thought it was her victory lap. "We should have pecan pie this time," she said one night, flipping through recipe books. "My dad used to love it." I nodded. "Let's make this one count." She kissed me, told me she was proud of how far we'd come. If only she knew how far she was about to fall. Sierra was working in the background, tracking wire transfers, building timelines, connecting Maddie's dummy accounts to Brandon's shady business expenses. Meanwhile, I ordered new AV equipment, not for movie night, for something else. A full wireless mic system, discreet enough to hide under the table, and a voice-activated recorder. This dinner wouldn't be a celebration. It would be an intervention with a body count. All I had to do was act normal, smile at her mom, thank her brother for the bourbon, listen to Brielle gossip. all while building the perfect stage. The same way they planned to take me down quietly? I was about to flip the script. And this time, every chair at the table would be a front row seat to the truth. The night before the dinner, Brielle called me. "Hey," she said, voice low, like she didn't want someone to hear. "I think I did something stupid." "What happened?" "I went through Maddie's closet last week. I was helping her look for an old dress. I found a burner phone." I sat up. "Did you open it?" "Yeah. There were texts with your name in them. Weird stuff. She was texting someone named D. Said she needed to speed things up before you got suspicious." "Did you take pictures?" "I did. But I think Maddie noticed. She's been cold ever since." Brielle paused, then added something that stopped me cold. "She doesn't trust Brandon anymore either. They've been fighting. I think she's playing both sides now." I leaned back, blood going ice cold. So Maddie had someone else. Someone named D? Brandon wasn't just a co-conspirator. He was disposable. She was prepping her escape route. I didn't know who D was yet, but I knew Maddie's pattern now. She never bet on one horse. She built lifeboats in the shadows while pretending to swim with you. "I need that phone," I said. "I'll try, but you need to watch your back tomorrow." "I always do." But now the game had changed. This wasn't just Maddie and Brandon. There was someone else in the picture. Another name. Another lie. And if she thought she could play me against her next backup plan, she was about to learn the hard way. You don't play chess with someone who's already flipped the board. Thanksgiving morning came like any other. The house smelled like roasted garlic and maple-glazed carrots. The turkey was in the oven. Candles lit. Background music playing low. Everything perfect on the surface. Maddie floated through the kitchen in a flowy dress, humming. She kissed my cheek, complimented my suit, asked me to set the table. I did everything she asked, because by the time dessert was served, her whole world would be melting off the walls. But even then, she tried to control the story. Just after her family arrived, Maddie pulled me into the bedroom. "I know something's going on," she said. "You've been distant." I stayed quiet. She grabbed my hand. "If you're upset about the past, about Brandon, I told you I'm done with that." She looked straight into my eyes. "He was nothing. It was a mistake. You and me? We're real." I looked back, blank. Not angry. Not sad. Just tired. She added, "You're acting paranoid lately. I get it. Business stress, right? But don't push me away." Gaslighting 101. Shift the blame. Twist the focus. Make me feel unstable. Guilty. Lost. But not this time. This time, I just nodded. "You're right," I said. "Let's make tonight count." She smiled like she just won, brushed her hair behind her ear, and walked out to greet her guests like she was the queen of something she didn't even own. But tonight, she wouldn't be the queen. She'd be the exhibit. It's easy to paint someone as the villain when you're the one holding the brush. But what if the villain doesn't wear black? What if she wears your ring? Maddie walked through that Thanksgiving party like she was still the center of gravity, warm with her mom, affectionate with me, even offered Brandon a hug like nothing ever happened. Brandon didn't hug her back. He was distant. His eyes flicked between me and Maddie like he'd just figured out he was part of a setup. He was sweating more than usual. His hands shook when he poured his wine. I watched it all play out like a director watching a cast stumble through their lines. Then it happened. Maddie stood and raised her glass. "To second chances," she said. "And rebuilding what matters." People clapped. Her mom even cried. Brandon didn't move. I waited until she sat down. Then I stood, cleared my throat. "I second that," I said. "Rebuilding is necessary, especially after you discover your foundation was a lie." The room went quiet. I didn't drop the bomb yet. Just let the silence stretch long enough for it to feel dangerous. Maddie looked up, confused. Brandon stared at his plate. I smiled and sat back down. The rest of the dinner carried on awkwardly. The tension lingered in the air like smoke. But something else happened that night, something Maddie didn't expect. Brielle started watching her differently. Because Brielle had seen the text messages, the storage receipts. She was seeing the cracks, finally. And once people start seeing the real you can't put the mask back on. 3 days later, Maddie got a message from Brandon. Or so she thought. "Need to talk. Alone. Meet me. Same place. Room 409. Sterling Inn. North Side." She didn't tell me. Of course not. But Sierra was tailing her now, watching everything. Maddie arrived at 6:42 p.m. hair curled. Red coat. Nervous. She checked in. Took the elevator up. The room was unlocked. She stepped inside slowly. The lights were low. A folder sat on the desk, her name written across the top. Inside, photos, printouts, wire transfers, screenshots of texts, everything. She turned around and found Sierra standing by the door. Maddie backed up. Who the hell are you? I'm the ghost of every secret you thought no one saw. Maddie tried to leave, but the door was already locked. I just want to talk, Sierra said calmly. You don't get to play dumb anymore. Maddie crossed her arms. You can't prove anything. Oh, I don't have to. That part's already handled. I'm just here to deliver a message. Maddie laughed. From Logan? Sierra tilted her head. No, from reality. Then she handed her a copy of the prenup clause, highlighted in yellow. A sticky note on the side. You built this. Now live in it. Maddie's face broke for the first time. Not angry. Not smug. Just confused. She finally realized she didn't control the game anymore. She was the game. Brandon called me the next morning. You set me up, he said, voice cracking. You think? I replied calmly. I could ruin you, Logan. No, Brandon. You already tried. And failed. He didn't respond. I let the silence do the talking. I gave you a chance, I added. You had a job. A seat at the table. You had my trust. And you pissed all over it. I didn't know she was playing both of us. I laughed. So what? That makes it better? He sighed. What do you want from me? I don't want anything from you. Then why are you doing this? I paused. Because you touched something that didn't belong to you, and then tried to bury me with it. More silence. You were my friend, he finally said. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. No, you were my guest. And you overstayed your welcome. Then I hung up. He texted me an hour later. Tell Maddie I'm out. I'm done covering for her. She's on her own. I didn't reply. He wasn't my problem anymore. But Maddie? Maddie was about to find out what happens when everyone walks away and you're left standing in the ashes of your own plan. It started quietly. A client backed out of a deal Brandon had been managing. Then another. Then 3 more in the same week. I hadn't called anyone. I hadn't sent emails. I just let the truth breathe. See, Sierra had already slipped our files to a few choice clients. Not accusations, just facts. Side-by-side breakdowns of quotes Brandon inflated, timelines he lied about, commissions he skimmed. It wasn't long before the phone call started. Hey Logan, is it true Brandon doesn't work with you anymore? Just checking. We noticed some red flags in the numbers. I answered honestly, calmly, and each time, they cut him out quietly. By the end of the week, Brandon's half of the business was a hollow shell. His name meant nothing without mine. His rep was tanking. And Maddie? She started noticing the change. She asked why Brandon wasn't returning her calls. Why clients weren't responding to emails. I looked at her over dinner and said, maybe you shouldn't mix business with pleasure. She froze. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. You tell me. She laughed nervously like it was just a weird joke. But her eyes didn't match the sound. I watched her unravel slowly. Because once the walls start closing in, it's not the noise that destroys people. It's the silence. The next morning, I found her sitting on the edge of our bed. Eyes swollen. No makeup. Pale. She looked up at me like a child lost in a crowd. I messed up, she whispered. I know I did. I said nothing. She stood, walked to me slowly, placed her hands on my chest. But I love you. I still love you. We can fix this. I didn't move. She kissed my jaw. We can start over. You and me. Forget the rest. Just say you'll try. I looked at her face. The same one that had smiled across from Brandon in a garage. The same voice that whispered, once he signs the deal, we're good. And she still had the nerve to say, I love you. But I didn't break. I didn't yell. I cupped her face gently, like I used to. And I said, let's have dinner. You and me. Just us. Tonight. She smiled like she won. Like the storm had passed. But what she didn't know, that dinner was already planned. And it wasn't just for us. That night, the table was set for 3. Maddie looked confused when she saw the extra place. Who's joining us? She asked. I poured wine. Your mom. She froze. You invited my mom? She deserves to be part of this conversation. Maddie looked like she was going to bolt. But it was too late. The doorbell rang. Her mom stepped in, holding a small envelope. Hi, she said softly, almost too gently. They hugged stiffly. We sat down. Silence filled the space for a long time. Then her mother turned to me. I know everything, she said. Maddie's eyes snapped to her. What are you talking about? I knew about Brandon. I saw the texts last year. I told you to stop. I begged you. You said you wouldn't say anything. I didn't, until I saw what you were planning to do to him. She nodded toward me. Maddie stood up, voice rising. This is my life. Her mom shook her head. You destroyed your own life the day you turned your marriage into a transaction. Maddie looked at me, but I wasn't giving her a lifeline anymore. I just kept my eyes on her mom, who pulled a folded letter from her purse. I'm testifying, she said. If this goes legal, I'm not protecting you. And just like that, the one person Maddie thought she still had in her corner was gone. Because betrayal burns both ways. And even your own mother can't save you when the truth is louder than blood. After Maddie's mom left that night, she locked herself in the bathroom. I didn't chase her. Instead, I went into my office and pulled out a folder I hadn't touched in over 3 years. My father's will. He passed from a heart attack when Maddie and I were just a year into the marriage. She helped me through the grief, or at least pretended to. Back then, I thought her comfort was love. But looking back, I realize now, it was investment management. My father left me more than money. He left land, stocks, and full legal ownership of the second property we used as a rental. Maddie had always assumed it was shared, since it came during the marriage. But the will said otherwise. In the event of my death, Logan inherits sole ownership of all titled properties unless legally reassigned by his signature, which meant she never owned it. And all the renovations she put under her name, her proof of contribution, they weren't legally binding. I forwarded everything to Andrew, my lawyer. Confirm what I'm seeing, I wrote. He replied 2 hours later. She owns nothing tied to the house, the second property, or the business. You're clean. She's exposed. That night, I found her sitting in the dark kitchen. She looked at me, eyes red. Why are you doing this? She asked. I leaned against the counter. Calm. Unmoved. You thought you knew what I'd do, I said. You planned for the version of me who was scared to lose you. I stepped closer. But that version died the day you picked Brandon over honesty. She didn't cry this time. Because now, she understood this was only the beginning. I sent Brandon one final text. Not from me. From an encrypted number. Spoofed. She's planning to pin it all on you. Check her call logs. Look what she's hiding. That's all it took. Because betrayal makes people paranoid. And paranoid people? They start talking. Sierra had tapped Brandon's line. Within hours, he was pacing in his apartment, rambling to someone on a voice message. I think she's setting me up. She had this burner phone. She's been talking to someone else, says I'm reckless, says I'm disposable. What the hell is going on? He didn't send the message. But we had the audio. Later that week, Maddie tried to call him. He didn't answer. She tried again. No response. By day 3, she was unraveling. I walked in on her in the office, tearing apart a drawer, searching. What are you looking for? I asked. She didn't answer. She was sweating. Shaky. Where's the red notebook? She snapped. I had it here. You mean the one with all the account info? I asked, slow. Her head whipped toward me. I shrugged. Funny. Thought we were supposed to be transparent now. She stepped forward. Logan, whatever this is, we can fix it. Fix what? Us. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd let out in weeks. There's no us, Maddie. There's you. There's me. And then there's the mess you made thinking I'd never find out. And now? She didn't know who to trust. Brandon was ghosting her. Her mom flipped. Her sister was watching her like a case study. And me? I was just watching it all fold, piece by piece. Because I didn't have to kill her plan. She was already doing it for me. It came through on a Wednesday. A legal freeze on all Maddie's accounts. Filed by Andrew. Supported by the prenup clause. And backed by the evidence Sierra had gathered. Fraud, attempted embezzlement, and misrepresentation of business assets. She screamed when she got the call. I was in the kitchen, pretending not to hear. She stormed in holding her phone like a weapon. What the hell is this? A consequence. You're destroying my life. No, I said slowly. You did that. I'm just letting it finish collapsing. She threw the phone. It bounced off the fridge. You planned this? This whole time? After the garage? Yeah, every step since then. Maddie collapsed against the wall, hands in her hair. I have nothing. I walked over and crouched beside her. You had everything. A husband. A house. A business. A future. I looked her dead in the eyes. You lost all of it the second you saw me as a tool instead of a person. She didn't answer. She just shook. Because for the first time, Maddie wasn't in control. Not the business. Not the lies. Not even her own name. I was almost satisfied. Almost. The house was cold now. Not in temperature, in feeling. No more fake smiles. No more pancakes and forced kisses. Just silence, papers, and the aftermath of a woman unraveling. Then Brielle called. Her voice was shaking. Logan, I need to tell you something, and you're not gonna believe it. I stepped outside, away from the house. What is it? It wasn't just Brandon. I froze. What do you mean? She wasn't just cheating with him. There's someone else. Someone who was in this before Brandon ever was. Someone she's been talking to again. The air in my lungs turned sharp. Who? She hesitated. Your brother. Everything in me stopped. No. That's not possible. He died. I know what you were told. But Logan, he didn't. I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. I found texts. Old ones. Then recent ones. She's been seeing him again for weeks. He's alive. And he's been helping her. My legs nearly gave out. My brother, Derek, had died in a car crash 6 years ago. That crash shattered me. He was the only blood I had left. And Maddie? She comforted me through the grief. Now I knew why it was always a little too easy for her. She knew because she helped him disappear. Where is he now? I finally asked. Brielle exhaled. I don't know, but I think he's back in the city. She's been slipping away at night again. I ended the call, hands shaking. Everything I'd planned, everything I'd built to destroy Maddie and Brandon, that was just the surface. There was another player, a ghost, and this time, it was personal. He walked into the bar like a man with nothing to lose. I knew it was him the second I saw the walk. Confident, sharp, like the world owed him answers and he was ready to collect. Derek, alive, my half-brother, same blood, same jawline, same eyes, different code. He slid into the booth across from me like this was just another Tuesday. Hey, brother. I stared. He smiled. No hug. What do you want? He shrugged. Depends. How mad are you? You faked your death. I survived, he corrected. You let me believe you were dead. I let everyone believe it. It was better that way. For who? He leaned back. For Maddie. I didn't move. I couldn't. If I had, I might have reached across that table and ended him right there. She found me. Months after the crash, I was broke, living out of my car. She said she could fix everything, but I had to stay gone. And you agreed? He laughed. Logan, you were always the clean one, the straight shot, the guy who did everything right. He leaned in closer. She wanted more than Brandon could give her. And she knew if she had me, she could hurt you where it counts. Why come back now? He smiled slowly. Because you're making a mess. And I don't like watching people tear down my girl. I stood up. He didn't flinch. You shouldn't have come back, I said. Neither should you. That was it. The war wasn't over. It had just escalated. The crash that killed him wasn't an accident. At least, not the way I was told. Back then, Maddie said he was drunk. That he veered off the road, hit a barrier, and the car exploded on impact. Closed casket. Minimal investigation. But now? Now I saw it for what it really was. The night after I met Derek, Sierra and I started digging. I asked her to pull the original police report. She found it in less than an hour. The statements were off. Witnesses vague. And the blood at the scene? Not even confirmed. No DNA match. Just a burned-out wreck and an ID badge Maddie gave the coroner herself. She controlled the story from day one. Because she needed him dead. Or at least to look that way. Why? So she could marry me without questions. So the past wouldn't interfere. So her insurance policy, my brother, could be tucked away until she needed him again. She didn't fall into this web by accident. She built it. Brandon was just a pawn. Derek? The real backup plan. The kind of plan you only make when you know how to fake a life, a death, and a future. Sierra looked at me as we pieced the last bit together. You're not just dealing with a cheater, Logan. You're dealing with a con. And now I wasn't just the betrayed husband anymore. I was the last honest man in a rigged game. The next morning, I sat alone in the backyard. Sun was out. Quiet breeze. Birds chirping like nothing had changed. But everything had. I thought about the night Maddie first told me she loved me. The way she held my face in her hands. The way she said, I'd never hurt you. Not in this lifetime. It wasn't just the betrayal anymore. It was the reality that everything I thought was real wasn't. My wife. A con. My brother. A fake corpse, hiding in my city, lying with my wife. My marriage, my home, my family. All of it had been a stage performance built on greed, secrecy, and manipulation. The truth hit harder than any punch Brandon or Derek could throw. I wasn't mad. I was mourning. Because there's a special kind of pain in realizing the people you gave your life to were never holding it gently. They were shaping it for sale. I heard Maddie's voice inside the house, faint. On the phone. She's bluffing, she said. He doesn't know everything. I can still fix this. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Sierra. She knew the walls were closing in, but she still thought she had another angle to play. And that's when it hit me. Maddie never cared about love. She cared about leverage. And I wasn't her husband. I was her platform. But platforms? They get pulled out from under you when the foundation's cracked. And hers was already breaking. I hadn't seen Sierra in person for 2 weeks. She was deep in research, gathering files, statements, voice logs, piecing together every last part of Maddie's web. But when she walked through the door that night, something was different. Not just in her hands, which carried 2 thick binders full of evidence, but in her face. Tired, focused, and something else. Personal. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I have everything, she said. Enough to press charges. Financial crimes. Wire fraud. Brandon and Maddie are both exposed. Derek's harder, but I've got a lead. She paused, looked at me longer than usual. You okay? I nodded, but didn't answer. She set the binders down and leaned forward. You trusted her. I get that. But Logan, this goes deeper. Maddie didn't just use you. What are you saying? She exhaled. Before the crash, I dated Derek. My jaw tightened. It didn't last, she said quickly. But we stayed in touch. After the crash, I tried to contact him. No response. Then, silence. She swallowed hard. I think he staged it with Maddie, but I also think he wanted out. At some point, he disappeared for real. Maddie found him again recently, but it's different now. He's unstable. I leaned back, digesting that. Sierra had skin in the game, and maybe that's why she came to me in the first place. But right now, she was the only one I trusted. You in this with me? I asked. All the way, she said. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Because this wasn't about winning anymore. It was about surviving the truth. We cleared the dining room table. Spread out the photos, legal forms, emails, voice logs, GPS pings, storage receipts, phone numbers, burner call histories. Each one a nail. Each one a weight. Each one a truth no one could deny. Sierra was already mapping it all out. Color-coded timelines. Markers for every lie, every withdrawal, every night Maddie claimed she was at a friend's house. It looked like a military strategy chart. Because it was. I wasn't going to court just to win. I was going to court to bury them. Brandon, Maddie, Derek, one by one. I pulled a photo from the pile. A shot of Maddie and Derek standing outside a motel. It was recent, just a week ago. Their faces relaxed. No shame. I slid it into the center of the table. This is where it ends, I said. Sierra nodded. We hit them with everything. Simultaneously. Freeze the accounts. Submit to the DA. Go public. What about Derek? She hesitated. He's slippery. But he's not invincible. I stared at the picture. They all thought I'd fold, I said quietly. That I'd crumble when I found out. Sierra looked up. But you didn't. I looked her in the eye. No. I woke up. She came to me 2 days before the dinner I'd been planning for weeks. Hair done. Soft voice. A little too rehearsed. I've been thinking, she said, sitting beside me on the couch. About us. About everything. I didn't look at her. She placed her hand on my knee. I want to start over, Logan. I know that sounds crazy, but I miss you. Not the business. Not the drama. You. I turned, just enough to meet her eyes. Then let's start over, I said. She blinked. Really? I smiled gently. Why not? Everyone deserves a second chance, right? Her shoulders relaxed. She melted into the cushion beside me like we were some happy couple again. And for the next 20 minutes, we sat in silence while a storm brewed just beneath my skin. Because what she didn't know was that I'd already wired the living room with a discreet lav mic under the coffee table. And everything she said, everything she confessed, was being recorded. Later that night, she called someone. I didn't know who, but I recorded that too. I've got him, she whispered. He's back on the hook. Just a few more days, and I'll have access to the rest. She was still playing a game. What she didn't realize, she was already in mine. The table was dressed in white linen and candles. 15 guests. Everyone Maddie invited. She smiled all night, touched my arm during conversations, laughed like nothing was wrong. I played along, refilled wine glasses, passed the rolls, complimented her cousin's new job. Her mom watched us both carefully, but said nothing. Then, during dessert, I stood up, tinged my glass. "Thanks for coming, everyone," I said. "This dinner means more than you know." Maddie looked up, still smiling. I wanted to celebrate a new chapter, a fresh start. I walked around the table slowly. A second chance at truth, transparency, trust. Her smile faltered slightly. Because trust, once broken, is hard to fix. But if we're lucky, sometimes the truth speaks for itself. I stopped by the bar cart, pulled out a small black speaker, and hit play. Her voice filled the room. "He's back on the hook. Just a few more days and I'll have access to the rest." Dead silence. Chairs creaked. Someone gasped. Maddie's face drained. I kept my voice calm. Sometimes you don't need to raise your voice to expose a lie. I looked at her. Sometimes you just hit record. She stood up fast. "You're insane." Her mother. "Oh my God, Maddie." "I can explain," she said. But no one was listening anymore. The whole table was staring at her like they were seeing her for the first time. And finally, they were. The next day, the warrant came through. Brandon was at his office, still pretending to run things, still pretending the world hadn't turned against him. He didn't even flinch when the officers walked in. But when they dropped the charges in front of him, he cracked. Fraud, theft, corporate espionage. All documented, all traceable, signed under his name. Brandon had no idea Maddie already gave his name up to Sierra in a last-minute panic, trying to save herself. She claimed she was manipulated. She said she didn't know he was stealing. She said she thought I knew. None of it worked. Brandon was cuffed and let out in front of his staff. Face red, eyes hollow. He called Maddie from jail that night. We had the transcript. "You told me we were in this together." She didn't respond. Because Maddie was done with him too. Brandon was never the prize. He was just a placeholder. And now, he was the fall guy. But the part Maddie didn't know, not yet, was that Derek's name had popped up in the investigation. And Sierra had found a paper trail. The next takedown was blood deep. She showed up at my office the day after Brandon was arrested. No makeup, hair tangled, eyes puffy. Security tried to stop her, but I told them to let her in. She walked in like a ghost, shut the door behind her, stood there, shaking. "I need you to hear me," she said. I didn't speak. "I didn't know it would go this far," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I stayed quiet. She dropped her purse, walked over slowly. I was scared. After the crash, after what Derek told me, he said you were dangerous, that you'd snap if you ever found out. Now I looked up. "You're blaming me for your choices?" "No, I'm saying I was confused. He was supposed to stay gone. And when he came back, it all got out of control. You let him stay with you. I didn't know what else to do. He said if I didn't help him, he'd tell everyone." I stepped forward. "Tell everyone what, Maddie? That he faked his own death with your help? That you married me to gain access to my business while you were secretly still talking to him? That you made a grieving man your safety net?" Tears streamed down her face. "I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. Over and over." She dropped to her knees. "Please, just tell me what to do." I looked down at her. And for the first time in our entire twisted story, I felt nothing. You do what everyone else does when the truth catches up. I turned for the door. You live with it. The night after Maddie's breakdown, Sierra and I sat in her office, reviewing the files. Derek's accounts, bank activity, cell tower pings, fake IDs. She was quiet. Unusually so. "What is it?" I asked. She leaned back. "I didn't tell you everything. I waited. I dated Derek. Yeah, but it ended ugly. Not just a breakup. He tried to blackmail me." I stared. "Blackmail you with what?" "An old client case. He got hold of some confidential material during our last few weeks. Said if I ever came after him legally, he'd leak it." I clenched my jaw. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because back then, I thought it was over. I thought he disappeared for good. And now," she exhaled, "now I think he's back because he wants to finish what he started." I nodded. The pieces were coming together. Derek wasn't just Maddie's backup. He was a threat to everyone around him, including her. "I've got a location," Sierra added. "He's been using an old storage unit downtown. His name's not on it, but one of the fake IDs ties to it. Let's go." "You sure?" "Yeah. I want to see what a ghost leaves behind." We drove out after midnight. The streets were quiet. No headlights, no pedestrians. just the hum of the city hiding its sins under neon signs. The unit was buried deep in a side alley. No cameras, no security. We cut the lock and slid the door up. Inside, blueprints, photos, documents, a burner laptop still warm, a map of my house, notes scribbled in Sharpie. Logan suspects. Maddie getting soft. Stage incident to regain control. Then we saw it. A printed email. A kidnapping threat. Addressed to me. Never sent. Just ready. Derek wasn't just planning to run. He was planning to force his way back in. And now, he was getting desperate. Sierra stepped back, eyes wide. We need to alert the police. I nodded slowly. But deep down, I knew something else. This wasn't about protection anymore. This was about finishing it. Derek faked his death. Used my wife. Robbed my life. Now he wanted to own it. But he didn't know one thing. I'd stopped playing defense a long time ago. I hadn't talked to my mother in weeks. She lived out in Galveston now, quiet life by the water. After everything with Derek, we'd kept a little distance. Some things just lived in the background. Until now. I called her. Mom, did you ever believe Derek really died in that crash? Silence. Then, why are you asking me that now? Because he didn't. She didn't speak for a full minute. I thought the line had dropped. Then she whispered, I knew. I stood still. What do you mean you knew? Not for sure. But I saw something, Logan. A few weeks after the crash, I saw Maddie pull into a motel parking lot. He was in the passenger seat. I froze. She looked me dead in the eyes. Then drove off. Why didn't you say anything? You were grieving. You'd finally stopped drinking. You were getting your life together. What was I supposed to say? Hey, your dead brother might be alive, and your wife might be hiding it. I didn't answer. She continued. There's something else, Logan. I braced myself. A few months before the crash, Maddie asked me if your father had any accounts Derek didn't know about. I thought she was being protective. But now, I sat down numb. This went further back than I'd thought. Maddie didn't fall into this. She'd been planning it since before we even said, I do. By Monday morning, the fuse was lit. Sierra filed full charges. Wire fraud, tax fraud, misuse of funds, and aiding a known fugitive, Derek. Andrew delivered our stack to the district attorney's office. The evidence wasn't just solid, it was overwhelming. And I didn't stop there. I sent copies to every major client Maddie had ever touched. Her fake emails, the paper trail from Brandon's skimming, the shell accounts, the storage receipts. By noon, her name was radioactive. She tried to call me. I let it ring. Then a blocked number showed up. Derek. I answered. You're making a mess, he said, low and steady. You made the mess, I said. I'm just putting names on it. You think these people care about justice? You think they'll give you peace? No. But I'm not doing this for peace. Then what are you doing it for? I didn't hesitate. To make sure no one ever gets played like this again. He hung up. And I knew then the law wasn't enough for him anymore. He'd come in person. And I was ready. Late that night, Maddie came back to the house. I don't know why. Maybe to grab what little she had left. Maybe just to see if I'd look her in the eye one last time. She walked through the kitchen like she was stepping into someone else's memory. Touched the counter. Looked at the wedding photo I hadn't taken down yet. Then she turned to me. You win. I shook my head. This wasn't a game. She laughed bitterly. Of course it was. It always is. She sat on the stool across from me. Derek's gone. You've destroyed everything. Congratulations. I didn't destroy anything, I said. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. She leaned forward. You think you loved me? I stared. No, me neither. She pulled a folded letter from her coat pocket. He left this. Before he vanished again. For you. I opened it slowly. Handwritten. You win this round, brother. But you'll never understand what it's like to be born second in every way. She chose me first. You were just convenient. She loved the idea of you. Not you. But don't worry. I'm not finished yet. I folded the paper, tucked it in my jacket. Looked at Maddie. You never loved anyone. Not really. She nodded. But I was really good at pretending, wasn't I? She walked out without another word. And that was it. The last fake smile. The last fake goodbye. Because in the end, even she was disposable to him. After Maddie walked out, I stayed at the kitchen counter for a long time. I read the letter again. Derek's handwriting looked exactly like it did when we were kids. I used to admire it. Always sharp, clean, confident, like he knew what came next. Now, it made my skin crawl. The part that hit hardest wasn't that he said she loved him first. It was that he believed it. He believed I was just a placeholder. A warm-up act for his return. I burned the letter in the sink. Watched the edges curl into black ash. Maddie was gone. Brandon was in jail. The business was mine again. But none of it felt like a win. You don't win after betrayal that deep. You just survive it. And even though I had the upper hand now, I knew Derek wasn't finished. He wouldn't show up with a gun. That wasn't his style. He'd bleed me from the edges. Find the cracks I hadn't patched. Target the few people I still trusted. He wasn't trying to reclaim Maddie. He was trying to ruin my name. And if that's the war he wanted, I'd bring him every ounce of fire he thought I didn't have. Because goodbye isn't enough for people like them. You bury them, or they rise again. 2 days later, the story broke. Not just a blog post or tweet. A full piece on the evening news. Local business owner uncovers massive internal fraud. Former partners under investigation. They blurred Maddie's face at first. But once the documents hit Reddit and screenshots started floating online, there was no stopping it. People came out of the woodwork. Old clients. Former interns. Even a high school classmate who said Maddie once faked a pregnancy for money. The internet lit up. Photos of her and Brandon. Rumors about Derek. Articles about the wedding. The stolen contracts. The hidden accounts. Everything. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was theirs. The world saw the real Maddie now. Not the smiling wife in Pinterest kitchens. Not the clean-cut entrepreneur. She was exposed. Raw. Crooked. Caught. I stayed quiet. Let it play. Sierra told me to keep a low profile, but she also smiled when she said, "You realize you just took down an entire empire without lifting your voice once?" It didn't feel like victory, but it felt like justice. And sometimes that's better. It wasn't literal, but it felt like it. The house we built together, the one with the double-sink bathroom, the garage where it all began, the backyard where she told me she wanted kids, sold in under 24 hours. I didn't keep a thing from it. No furniture. No silverware. Not even the damn chairs. It was all part of a life I was done living. The day I handed the keys to the new owners, I walked through one last time. Room by room. No tears. No second thoughts. I stopped in the garage. Looked at the empty corner where the folding chairs used to sit. Same place I first heard her laughing with Brandon. Same place the truth cracked wide open. Then I locked the door and left. I didn't burn it down with fire. I burned it down by walking away from everything that once held me hostage. And as I pulled out of the driveway for the last time, I didn't look back. Because whatever was behind me wasn't mine anymore. 2 months passed. No contact from Maddie. Brandon had gone silent in jail. And Derek? He disappeared again. No phone activity, no sightings. Like a shadow retreating into the dark. In the quiet that followed, Sierra and I kept talking. Not about the case. Not about revenge. About life. Turns out, she'd started rebuilding too. New clients. A new apartment on the west side. And for the first time, no running. She invited me over one Friday. Nothing serious. Just a drink. A breath. We sat on her balcony, watching the skyline stretch into dusk. "I think you won," she said softly. I shook my head. "This wasn't a game." "No," she replied. "But it was still survival. And you made it out." I looked at her for a long time. For once, I wasn't analyzing, planning, or preparing for a hit. I was just still. And that's when I realized revenge didn't fix everything. But understanding who you are after the fire, that's where the real healing starts. And maybe she was part of that. It happened the next day. I was coming out of the gym. No security. No backup. Just keys in my hand and a protein bar in my pocket. And then I saw him. Derek. Leaning against my car. Same smirk. Same eyes. But something darker this time. I didn't stop walking. "You're not good at staying gone," I said. He pushed off the car. "You're not good at letting things go. You faked your death. You faked being innocent." That stopped me. "What the hell are you talking about?" He stepped closer. "You think Maddie built this all alone? You think she came up with the plan? She didn't. You planted the seed." I laughed. "Get help." "You think she was the first one to lie to you?" he asked. "Look deeper. Look back. You were never clean, Logan. You just buried your dirt better." I said nothing. "Don't look at me like I'm the monster. You created your own." And then, just like that, he walked away. No threats. No fights. Just truth bombs and smoke. But the way he said it, the calm in his voice. It chilled me. Because it wasn't over. And Derek? He was about to pull something no one saw coming. Sierra showed up with eyes wide and breathing fast. He's trying to pin everything on you, she said, dropping a file on my desk. What? Derek filed a report with Homeland Security, said you helped him disappear, financially supported him, knew he was alive, claimed Maddie was blackmailed, claimed you staged it all to steal the business. I stood up. That's insane. It doesn't matter. He has just enough fake evidence to make them investigate. If they dig in the wrong place, they'll find what he planted. She nodded. It's a setup. And suddenly, it all made sense. Derek's return. The silence. The walk away at the car. He didn't come back to fight. He came back to flip the script. Because if he couldn't beat me by force, he beat me through narrative. The same way Maddie did. Only this time, the stakes weren't personal. They were criminal. The courtroom was quiet. Not dramatic like in movies, no shouting, no slamming hands on tables. Just quiet. Cold. The kind of silence where truth finally starts speaking for itself. On one side, my attorney, Andrew, calm and surgical. On the other, Derek's lawyer, smug and loud, pushing the story Derek had built like a well-rehearsed play. Logan Harlan used funds to fake his brother's death. He pressured his wife into covering for him. The entire company was a laundering front. All of it, lies. But dangerous lies. Because the best lies always thread themselves through half-truths. And Derek? He had just enough old records, backdated forms, and doctored emails to cause doubt. Until we dropped the real evidence. The burner emails from Derek's storage unit. The recording of Maddie admitting she helped him fake his death. The surveillance of Derek meeting with an identity forger 2 weeks before the crash. The court went silent. Even the judge looked rattled. Then Andrew dropped one more bomb. A security cam video of Derek approaching me outside the gym last week. Calm, calculated, and unprovoked, right before he filed the report accusing me. That was the nail. Derek's lawyer tried to delay, asked for continuance. Denied. The judge ordered a full investigation, not into me, into Derek. And just like that, the con finally cracked. The trial wasn't over yet, but it didn't need to be. By the time we walked out of the courtroom, everything had changed. The press was already buzzing. Brandon was still rotting in jail. Maddie's name was dust. Derek was finally on the defensive. No more swagger, no more smirk. But Maddie? She showed up at the parking lot. Alone. No cameras. No lawyers. Just her, in a beige coat and sunglasses too big for her face. You won, she said. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. You always had to be the hero, didn't you? No. I just refused to be the victim. She looked away. I'm sorry. No, you're not, I said. You're just out of moves. She nodded slowly. Then I said something I didn't plan to say. Didn't even know I would say. I forgive you. She looked up fast, caught off guard. But I'll never forget, I added. And I'll never let anyone near me forget what you're capable of. She didn't cry, didn't plead, just walked away. For good this time. And as she disappeared into the crowd, I felt something I hadn't felt since the garage. Closure. 6 months later, I signed a lease in Flagstaff. Smaller house. No open floor plans. No oversized dining table. Just peace. I launched something new. Not a renovation firm. Not a tech startup. A nonprofit. Chairs in the garage. It was raw. It was real. A project built for people who'd been betrayed, conned, or burned by someone close. Spouses, siblings, business partners. We offered legal help. Private investigations. Even therapy referrals. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Sierra ran the legal team. We didn't label what we were. Sometimes she stayed for dinner. Sometimes we didn't talk at all, just sat quietly, watching the light fade outside the window. No expectations. Just healing. I kept a photo in my desk drawer. Not of Maddie. Not of Derek. Of that Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone smiling. Right before it all cracked open. I looked at it sometimes, not with anger, but as a reminder of what pretending costs, of what silence hides, and of how far someone will go when they believe you'll never fight back. The mic was live. The lights were low. And the red, recording indicator glowed like a heartbeat. I took a deep breath, leaned in, and pressed start. This is Logan Harlan. You don't know me, but you know someone like me. I paused, then continued. Someone who thought they had it all, the house, the career, the marriage. Someone who didn't see the lie until it was whispering in the garage, while he was just grabbing chairs. The screen in front of me ticked forward, tracking every second. I spoke slow, honest, no script. I walked them through it, Thanksgiving. The whispers, the phone calls, the the files, the betrayal. Brandon, Maddie, Derek. I didn't dramatize it, didn't twist it. I just told the truth. The real kind. The kind that makes your stomach drop. The kind that reminds people betrayal doesn't show up with a warning. It shows up smiling. I talked about how easy it is to let people build a life on top of you when you're too loyal to check the foundation. And I told them how it felt to lose everything, and then realize that maybe that was the best thing that could have happened. This isn't a revenge story, I said near the end. This is a rebuild story. This is for the ones who trusted too long, loved too hard, and finally walked away. I ended it the only way I knew how. This all started with dinner, with family, with a lie whispered in the garage. So, before you sit down at your next table, check the chairs. Because sometimes, the seat you're about to pull out tells you everything you need to know. I clicked stop, and just sat there in the quiet. Next chapter? The world hears it. The podcast episode hit 1 million streams in 48 hours. Emails poured in. Messages from strangers. Stories from people who'd been lied to, used, betrayed, and told to just move on. But they didn't want to move on. They wanted someone to say, "You're not crazy." That did happen, and it wasn't your fault. I said it for them. And now, I live quiet. Small house. No cameras. No courtroom calendars. Just a few good people, a clean desk, and peace that doesn't ask me to bleed for it. I still remember it, though. That exact moment, when I stepped into the garage for more chairs. It wasn't just a man walking into a room. It was a man stepping out of denial. And that's what I want you to remember. We all have that garage moment. That quiet instant where something clicks and the lie we've been living in can't survive 1 second longer. When it comes, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't fold. Stand up. Ask questions. And if the foundation's cracked, walk away and build your own damn house. And now, to everyone still watching, still listening, let me ask you something. Did this story hit somewhere real for you? Then don't just scroll away. Like this video, hit that subscribe button, and slap that bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Because trust me, there are more stories like this. Stories that hit close. Stories that aren't fiction. And hey, before you go, drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me how this story made you feel. Tell me your favorite moment, or the one that hurt the most. Let's hear your voice too. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones we tell. They're the ones we finally stop hiding. This was Chairs in the Garage, and I'm Logan Harlan. Thanks for listening. And remember, even silence has a sound when you're finally ready to hear it.